Well, hey everyone, I'm Joey Stutson. Look who I have. I have my new friend, Sam Chan, author of a book that really influenced my life. Sam loves hanging out with leaders, but his book, Leadership Pain, really influenced me years ago. And I'm just honored, Sam, that I'm even able to really introduce you to any audience that I may have that may be checking this out. The heyday quote out of Leadership Pain: growth equals change, change equals loss, loss equals pain. So inevitably, growth equals pain. Pain is part of progress. Anything that grows experiences some pain, and anything that grows, that was me, Sam. So, Sam, I know you love talking to leaders, you travel the world. We're having a living room conversation today. I'm not trying to produce a podcast, don't have that ability to do that well. However, I do enjoy sharing insights from successful authors of books and really leaders, servant leaders who really enjoy the fulfilling process of writing, but also inspiring people with more than just, say, influence. And Sam, you've influenced a lot of leaders. I know you introduce and spoken on some of the world's best stages. You're magazine that I'm going to now be a part of, subscribing to, and I highly recommend anybody out there that may be watching this to subscribe to Avail Journal. Now, John Maxwell is on the feature of your cover. Sam, can you just tell us a little bit about you and how you've got to the convergence of what you're doing today? Because you've been an author, a speaker, a university president, a pastor, and a business leader, a consultant. So, Sam, thank you for the conversation. How did we get here?
Ah, it's been a long, winding road. So you asked me the confluence of all of my leadership life experiences. My leadership began as a janitor, breakfast cook, dishwasher, youth pastor, associate pastor, lead pastor, university president, consultant, coach, author, friend, speaker. Uh, so it's everything starts kind of flowing together. So I keep thinking about the time in early 70s in Atlanta when I was a janitor. So now when I go into a building, I go into a church or a company, a corporation. I'm always looking for, is there trash picked up? Is this clean? Is there a bad? you know? So uh, I was a breakfast cook, so my favorite meal of the day is still breakfast. Uh, I get to wash dishes at home now. So life is just like that. Scrambled eggs, it all becomes part of your journey, and thank God for that because they all are full of leadership lessons.
Sam, that's beautiful. I picking the trash, the little things. So many focus on platform influence. And you moved to this country. I remember reading in your book that you literally had a few dollars in your pocket, uh, maybe a Snickers bar, if I remember correct. I can't remember the detail, but you had nothing. And the pain of being an immigrant into this country and some of the voices you had to deal with negative criticism and growing up without a father, I experienced some of that pain. And so I kind of know what it feels like to be the illegitimate family or the boy. And so I really was drawn to your story of how you started from the bottom because so many want to start from the top. And so, how did you feel moving to this country with so little, but yet so much power in the word servant leader? You've really blossomed in your career and you understand the principle of serving first.
The only time you start at the top is when you're digging a hole. Apart from that, you'll always start at the bottom. And unfortunately, in the days that we're living in, everyone wants to fast track themselves through all kinds of career changes and zigzags uh, to get to the top. And there is no fast track to the top because if you do get on a fast train to the top, you're going to crash and burn because you don't have the muscles that it takes to build character, build competency, build discernment, build friendships, build resources, build a wider way of thinking. You just don't have those. You cannot fast track that. You can read all the books you want to. You can go to all the conferences you want to. You can consult and coach anyone you want to. But there's certain things you just cannot fast track. And leadership is one of those things. And if you have a slower journey, you will find yourself more successful with longevity at the top and more breadth and scope at the top. Your sphere and scope will be larger. And if you are not trying to rush your way up the mountain. So I came to United States in 1973, August of 1973, Joey, with exactly 87 cents in my pocket and not even a Snickers bar. And I can tell you why I remember it was 87. Because I landed in JFK Airport, and if you're familiar with JFK, international terminal is here, domestic terminal is here. So I flew in on Air France into international terminal, and I had to go to the domestic terminal to catch my connecting flight to Atlanta. And as I was in those days, suitcases didn't have wheels. That's an important part of the story now. Suitcases, thank God for the one who created wheels on a suitcase. I mean, I think they should make it to heaven. And so I was dragging my suitcase and I saw the shuttle bus come around that would take me from international to domestic. And in those days, they charged you $1 to make that journey. I did not know that. So I got on the bus with my suitcase and the driver says, that'll be $1, sir. And I dug all this money I had in my pocket and I came with 87 cents and I tried to give that to him. And as they can do only in New York, he told me to get off the bus. So I did. And that's how I know I had 87 cents in my pocket. So came to this country. This country has blessed me incredibly. I have nothing negative to say about the United States of America. And I don't care what you hear, what you read. I read and hear the same thing. You know, when people say, well, I'm going to go live in another country, I say, okay, good. And name me a few. Yeah. So all that to say, this country has been amazing for me. It's been a blessing for me and my family. And I thank God for the United States of America.
I'm so happy to hear your background and your story and really get into the raw feelings of what you had to face. And leaders have to face rejection. I believe that's part of the path of a righteous man, is really to face rejection in the crowd and fear of man. From janitor to president, let's pivot for a minute. Let's talk about that. How did your early experiences shape your perspective on the leadership voices that you listened to growing up? Because I know it's very easy to have fear and self-doubt in those circumstances. Let's just be honest. My kids, I want them they're not in private school. We have an amazing public school system here, but I want them to have the best ingredients and I want them to feel confident and I want them to be committed and have the best possible resources. But the tension to balance, how did that tension of growing up, suffering adversity, really accelerate your confidence? So how did that influence you? Because a lot of people in those situations either go one way or the other.
You know, early in life, I was 20 at that time, you don't have the maturity to discern whether they're rejecting you, your thinking, or what you're doing. You don't know that. So when you're immature, you take all rejection personally. It could be that they like you. They're not rejecting you. They just don't like what you're doing. And if you blend the two, then you're going to take it personally. And when you feel rejection personally, you emote in a different way, you respond in a different way, you think in a different way. And I did not have those muscles, and most people don't either, in which you cannot differentiate between someone saying no to you personally or someone saying no to what you're planning on doing or an idea that you might have. And you would, if I could differentiate and discern between those three earlier in life, life would have been easier. But I was just a growing up young person, young adult, did not know that. So that's one of the things I would say is rejection is not always personal. It's taken personally if you don't stop and say, okay, is it me? Is
Hmm.
it something I'm doing? Or is it an idea that I'm trying to project over there? So that was one thing. The second thing I would say is uh, whenever I went through difficult times, because I was in survival mode, you don't have time to really, parse it or think about it or try to figure it out. When you don't have food, which I didn't many times. The first time I grew up in an upper middle class home in India, never lacked for food, always wore good clothes, went to the best schools, uh, had the highest education at Catholic schools run by Franciscan Italian monks. So I got the best of education, uh, ate 3 square meals, well, 4 square meals a day. That's what we do in India. There's an afternoon tea with some heavy hors d'oeuvres that go along with that. Always wore good clothes, tailor-made clothes. I mean, never had. But so first time I went hungry was not in India. First time I went hungry was in the United States. But here's the deal. When you are hungry, you're not trying to figure out whose fault is it and how did this happen and who's against me. Your only thought is, how do I get my next meal?
Wow.
Hmm? So, so when I see pictures of the famine in Sudan right now, for example, in Africa, I feel terrible, 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 and try to help everywhere I can. But those people are not saying the world is against us. Why don't they do something like that? When is food going to be dropped from a helicopter? They're just scouring the landscape to see whatever is edible and how can we quench the hunger and thirst in our life right now. And I think that's an important thing for people to realize. When you're going through some tough stuff in your life, you can analyze it later on. You can try to figure out later on. But right now, I got to get some food. Right now, I got to get to next Sunday. Right now, I got to raise that money. Right now, I got to meet payroll. Whatever your right now is what you get focused on.
Hmm.
So I would say to all the people watching me and hearing me right now is to say to yourself, yes, it's unfair. Yes, I feel rejected. Yes, I feel misunderstood. But right now, I got to focus on getting from point A to point B. I'll figure out later on, learn lessons from that, write a book, do conferences. But right now,
Hmm.
that's where I'm at. And I think that's an important thing to remind yourself how you have to triage the moment
Hmm.
rather than curling up on a therapist couch.
Wow. So filtering the moment, not taking it personal. So you were able to diagnose, was it me? Is it the person's attitude or is it something I'm doing or something?
On on good days, I was able to diagnose on good days,
Yeah.
and I had more bad days than good days.
How did you filter out the noise of in your book you write about the voices in our head and that turn into what we speak out of our mouth and then what we speak out of our mouth ends up being a voice in someone else's head and so we're really the sum total. I think you worded it, we're the sum total of voices that we've heard about ourselves. So we have two conflicting voices. You may have a voice of, I'm confident I can be a president or a business leader traveling the world speaking like you, Sam, but you've also had to combat and filter out the negative voices, the sum total of things that were spoken over your life. So how did you develop the resilience to have the confidence, but also the humility to filter out the bad voices?
So, because of the kind of work that I do, I I'm on platforms, but I'm also on one-on-one consulting with CEOs and large church pastors and executive directors, so on and so forth. I know I'm going to have bad days. So I'll give you an example. Last week, I was in Honduras speaking at an amazing church with thousands of leaders. I mean, if I could describe this campus to you, they got an auditorium to seat 500 and literally 30-second walk from there, another auditorium that seats 3,000 people. And literally another 30-second walk, another auditorium that seats 7,000 people. I mean, this is like this driveways, crazy, crazy, crazy. So I spoke in all three of those auditoriums with different groups.
Mhm.
My first session went really good. My third session went really good. My second session, I felt I was dying.
Mm.
I was not connecting. I was speaking on the topic of longevity in leadership. And I just wasn't connecting, And the voices in my head, and I had an interpreter with me speaking in Spanish. So I'm speaking English, he's speaking Spanish. And I got thousands of people in front of me, all of them leaders, about 3,000 leaders. From the business community and the church community. And I feel like I'm dying. And the voice in my head is telling me I'm dying.
Mm.
And there's no escaping it. There's no trapdoor hatch that can just take me out of sight. And I've been invited, and I'm an international speaker and a consultant and a coach and an author. And I've been introduced with all those accolades, and I feel like I'm not connecting. But I had a third session just 2 hours after that. So remember, first session went well. That was on a Friday. Second session was on Saturday morning, which I died.
Oh.
Third session, I'm expecting 7,000 people in the large auditorium. But the voice in my head is saying two things. You got a third session, you died now. And when I'm getting ready for my third session, the voice is saying, you died. I had good content, Joey. I'd had good content. It just didn't connect.
Mm.
People took notes.
Mm.
The content was good, but I did not connect. So I'm using that as an illustration, just happened with me. And you just got to say to yourself, yeah, you're going to have those days.
But you still responded to the third session. I'm sure if I were in the seat or anyone else, that you'd be looking at the number of attendees for the
Yeah,
third session. Oh,
yeah,
they're lower than they could have been because maybe I didn't do so well at the
yeah,
second set. So you're competing voices in your head.
yeah.
So the response, so you responded and you showed up, and then what happened?
I just went into it saying, I didn't mess up. I didn't connect. Let me work harder at connecting here. And I just had an amazing third session.
See, that's amazing. So how did you know you didn't connect? Because you have an interpreter. And so
Yeah.
language, it's all body language. And if you
The
had
body
content,
You
how did
know, you
you
know, I've been doing this for 36, 37 years. I can read a room.
mm,
I can read a room, and I'm not even looking for responses or hand claps, or you just read the room. I can read the room whether I'm connecting or not. So my content was good. My preparation was good. I did not take them for granted. Uh, I think I was as ready as could be, but for whatever reason that I cannot figure out, I did not feel like I connected. Now, after the session was over in the green room, everyone's saying, man, that was crazy good. Ooh, that was so good. When you said this point number 3, it just really connected and it all makes sense. And so they are telling me that, but in the moment when I'm speaking, Joey, it's like dead air. And I'm
mm,
pretty good at reading rooms.
uh,
But it's competing voices. If you're a pastor listening to me right now, for example, if you're a church leader, pastor, you're gonna have those 3, 4 Sundays a year at least, in which it will be dead. I mean, nothing happens. and you're going to beat yourself up, but you just shake it off and go on, because that's what leadership is about. Leadership never dwells on the past. It learns from the past, but it doesn't dwell on the past. You just keep moving forward.
It's interesting perspective. It made me think about what you would say influence is the ability to connect with an audience, but is there instances where, say, the audience or the crowd, I think about a Jeremiah, no one wants to bring it up, but if you're growing a megachurch and things are growing and you're a speaker and people are connecting, but what about a situation when you're communicating a truth that people aren't wanting to connect with, but you're still standing outside of the crowd and inspiring the crowd and they reject it? So how do you know if it's from a business perspective? Let's just pivot to the business side. You're speaking to an audience and the audience isn't connecting, and you're prepared, you're a competent speaker, you have a message, and say people are distracted and say they're just not receiving the gold. So how do you know how to navigate and respond in such a distracted culture we live in that you write about? So as a leader, how did you develop, like, give us some practical steps to face rejection from a crowd, but still influence the crowd apart from it.
Yeah, so I have been in auditoriums and rooms with some of the best speakers on the planet and seen them bomb.
Really?
Seen them, I mean, yeah. I've seen the best of the best have bad days. So that encourages me. It's like, if it can happen to them, it will happen to me. And I just got to say to myself, it was just that moment. It's nothing personal. It's just a moment. And my content was good. My preparation was good. That means I was not slothing off. I was not taking anyone for granted. I was not like, hey, I can do this. I came ready. And for whatever reason, it just did not connect. So you just have to go beyond that. And I'm saying to everybody listening to me right now, you will have those days. And you just can't dwell there. You cannot live there. You can learn from it and go on, but you cannot dwell that. Maybe you introduced the topic too early. Maybe they didn't know enough about you. Maybe you didn't tell enough interesting stories. Maybe you instead of starting off light and working yourself into some heavier content, you started the heavier content. All kinds of reasons, but you just have to say to yourself, this is par for the course. It will happen. You will have those days in which you just won't connect. And so don't beat yourself up. It was just a day. You didn't connect. We just go on to the next one. And while it sits in your head, you just work through that and go beyond that. And it all ends up well. I can tell you this, I have messed up so many times. And by messed up, I'm meaning just didn't make the connection. And yet people invite you back. So that means that they received, but not like you thought they might. So maybe my gauge is off. The way I'm measuring that is off. Maybe I don't understand the culture of that company or that church or that country. It could be all kinds of reasons.
Sam, curious, where did you get the inner circle to help develop you as a speaker and a writer? Because so many today on LinkedIn specific, friends with a lot of writers and authors of books through acquaintances, right? LinkedIn. And many of us are constantly pushing out our content, right? We want to be seen, because if we're not seen, we're irrelevant and we're not really able to articulate our message. But then the flip side is too much you focused content, my book, my image, my message. Where did you find the inner circle to really help build the voices, the confidence, the competency, character, longevity that gave you that first open big opportunity, whether it be a big platform opportunity to speak or whether it be your first book that took off, which, by the way, I'm a big fan of your books, I've already mentioned. But how did you find the mentors and the friends to give you the feedback to fail forward and build the confidence that you have?
So the much of my thinking comes from what I didn't want to be like, what I did not want to be like. So I saw people who were always promoting their book. They were always selling something. They always talked about the message that they have. And it always, everything that they said was so good, so good. But it was more of an infomercial, an advertorial, if you wish. Because as good as it was, I knew there would be a sale pitch at the end.
Mhm.
And I didn't want that. So I just said to myself, why don't I just put thoughts out there? Just this is what I'm thinking. So every week, my team puts stuff out on LinkedIn and X and Facebook and Instagram, that kind of thing. They put thoughts out there. So they are short thoughts. Years ago, I started doing a thing called Tuesdays with Sam Chand.
Mm.
And that would be, I would say, 10 years ago. And every Tuesday, there's a 2 minute or less free video on a leadership thought. It's a big thought, but I'll give 2 minutes to it. All I'm trying to do is provoke thinking. So once I got my head into that's what I want to do, you will notice that everything that I do has very little about sales. It has just thoughts. I wanted to be, and still want to be, not a bookseller or a conference speaker or a consultant. I want to be a thought leader. By that, I mean, if I can say something that will spark a thought in your mind, that's all. That's my success right there. So I'm not trying to sell you the book. I'm not trying to get an appointment. I'm not trying to be a speaker. I'm not trying to be in a podcast or webinar, masterclass. I'm just trying to be a person who can say something that will spark a thought in your mind, that will take your imagination where it needs to go.
Sam,
So that's what I meant.
you said before to that point about enjoying the fulfilling part of what inspires you internally. It's fulfilling. You've mastered the ability to also maximize the results, which is the external, which I would call influence in your time. And so with all the years of developing the competency to do just that, that's the seesaw effect we all struggle with in our journey. And really being very measured and learning how to master those ingredients. And so, but to your point, so many people are just focused on their craft, the external. But you like the thought, the inspiration, perhaps, and you enjoy that creative process of challenging people's thinking. And
Because if I make you think, Joey, you will buy my book. You know what I'm saying? If I can make you think, you're saying, that's a good thought. Wonder what else does he have? So, for example, the last 5 books that I have written, I've written 38 books. The last 5 books that I have written, I have not sold. I have not sold a single one of them. So, for example, this latest book that you're talking about, Voices. Now, of course, you can get it on Amazon, but you don't have to. If you were to go to, for example, here's the website, if you were to go to samchandbook.com, samchandbook.com, you're going to get a page which says, pay whatever you want to pay for this book. You want to pay $1 for the book? You'll still get it in the mail, hard copy in the mail.
you sent this one to me for free.
Yeah. That's what I do. So, if you go to samchandbook.com, it'll come up with a highlighted area asking you, what is it that you want to pay? You want to pay $1, you want to pay $10, you want to pay $25, you want to pay $100. Nobody's going to ask you a question. It's going to say, okay, where do you want us to send this to? And we'll send it to you. You pay for the postage, but we'll send you the book. So again, what am I trying to achieve here? What I'm trying to achieve is not sell you a book. Because if I was selling that, I just do it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, Target, all of those. That book is listed everywhere else. And you can do that if you want to. And you can buy that. But as an author, I retain the rights to not sell the book. Now, I can't give it to you free. And the reason I don't want, can't is not a good word. I don't want to give it to you free, but I'll take you as close to free as I can.
Wow.
So if you say, well, you're going to put down $1. I'm going to put down $1. Okay. No questions asked. That my leadership institute, Sam Chan Leadership Institute, which is 12 months of training. You get a digital book a month. You get 3 master class videos a month for whatever you want to pay. Whatever you want to pay. So I'm trying to illustrate from my life, Joey, that I am putting literally my money where my mouth is. So I'm not trying to sell you a book. I'm not trying to sell you a master class. Not trying to sell you my 12-month leadership journey, 12 of my books, with 36 videos over 12 months. And you say, I just want all of that for $1. Good. I want to pay $1,000. Good. Nobody's going to come back and say, are you serious? You got to be kidding me. No. And what I'm saying to you is my heart is to make people think for whatever they want to pay. So I'm just illustrating that to say to everybody that you don't have to monetize everything. And that's what in my head is I want to make it available. In Christianese, we would say be a blessing to everybody without it become a financial issue with people.
That is a interesting thought because it's differentiated from most best practices today, most businesses. And it made me want to ask you about a few things. One, giving value, but not free. I think there's a boundary because you could be under challenged and really acquiesce and be a pushover.
I think $1 is the closest I can come to free.
I love it. So you push the tension, and ironically, you're giving more value. You're creating thoughts. People are getting inspired, and then they're drawn to you, and so they want to read your content. And it made me want to ask how much of your creative content when you're filing and writing, because I'm sure you do it because you enjoy it, but you also have results. So how much of your content is original thought, right? There's no original ideas, right?
None.
In the back of my head, I know. So how did you master your voice and what inspired you to write voices as an example? Because there's so many books out there as readers, we all read, but then today most people don't read. So as an author and a leader, you you have to really be a sage when it comes to knowing your own voice and what you produce.
So I produce things that are speaking to me in that moment. And I said to myself, Sam, you're not the only one thinking these thoughts. I'm sure there are others who are thinking the same thoughts. So think about that thought. So first of all, I can claim zero originality for anything I've ever done. My bestseller is Leadership Pain. My second bestseller is Who's Holding a Ladder, and so on and so forth. My third bestseller so far has become Voices. And so pain came because I worked with leaders and I started asking myself, well, you read the book. Yeah. I started asking myself, what's the price of promotion? Why do some grow and some don't? And so the concept of pain. And then I started writing on that. So how you asked me a question, how did the book Voices come about? So once a year, Joey, I do an invitation only leadership getaway for 50, no more than 50 large church pastors. And we go to different places like Colombia, Panama, Mexico, St. Thomas, Puerto Rico. This year I was in Aruba. Next year I'll be in Bermuda. So there are top level leaders come to this. So I was teaching in Aruba on this concept of voices
Hmm.
because I was dealing with that in my head, voices, and so I taught on voices. And so these are all 50 of high level leaders, and they bring their wives with them. So it's a really, really 6-star event. Sick. I mean, it is amazing. So they are listening to me teach, and after the first session, I have a break, and I'm in the restroom. And these guys said to me, "So have you written that book?" I said, "No, what book are you talking about?" They said, "No, what you're teaching." I said, "No, no, no, it's just a teaching. I have no intent of writing a book." So and then throughout the 2.5 days in Aruba, people kept coming up to me saying, "You got to write that book. You got to write that book. You got to write that book." So, Joey, I'm going to tell you, I had zero intention of writing a book. But here you have that book. So it's just the whole notion of I just prepare material and see what happens with it. So that's how Voices came about. Was in Aruba. I'm working on another piece for Bermuda. I cannot tell you about it right now because I want people and myself to be surprised by that. But it's
And
going to be one big topic.
the
One,
tension. You have another book called Tension. There's a tension in that. You can't tell us. So the suspense
yeah.
is, I mean, more.
So I wrote a book on tension, harnessing
That's
the
right.
power of tension, and that was written during COVID. And all of us listening to us know COVID is filled with tension. And so I wrote a book about that. So I just go by nothing original, but I capture a moment
Mhm.
of something that's challenging me. So when we're off the air, I can tell you what I'll be teaching about in Bermuda, but who knows, that might turn into a book. I have no intent of it being that, but it could be.
That's exciting. I'm excited to be able to have that conversation. Sam, I want to ask you another question. We have, because I know your time, we're looking at the time right now. And so
I'm good with you. I'm good.
I want to make sure the plane lands. The purpose of, like, what do you believe the loudest voices in a leader's head today that could distract them from having the level of inspiration of really enjoying what they do? And I'll give you an example of a distraction for me personally that maybe others might relate to. One is I can find myself being distracted with goal setting. Like I love setting goals. Like we love goals. And but then there's levels of goals. So once you achieve a goal, what is the one thing that we do next? We set more goals. And so this nonstop push and work and voices maybe even in our head. You mentioned a story of a voice and a distraction in your life. Someone said something about you being an animal, right? A teacher, and so that rejection was a voice. And then, but you had another voice. A pastor tapped you on the shoulder and then randomly asked you to go sing in front of a large congregation. And you were like, "Wow, I've never done that before. I mean, that's kind of awkward." And the pastor just believed in you and pushed you out there. But goal setting has a voice. And for me, the dashboard and the voice has always been the level of the result. And so where did you find the ability to really not be distracted by the own critic in your head that is never content or, always not satisfied, always wanting to push forward? And because you seem to enjoy what you do and you seem to have inspiration, I would say, from God about what you do, and you're not really so focused on the level of your goal. You seem very content, but yet you're very maximizing your results um, on those voices. So let me be clear with the question. With all the distractions and all the voices out there, especially for people who are driven and always wanting goals, how did you learn the best voice to listen to in any given moment? Because you spoke about moments and knowing opportunity when they come to you.
I can tell you we live in the most distracted time in human history. And the largest voice in our head for leaders is all the stuff we see about those leaders on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, Instagram, and everyone's putting out their best of the best out there. They're putting out the crowd they're speaking to, they're putting out their material, and the voices in our head become like, they're doing that. Why am I not doing that? So you think about goals for a minute. Goals didn't come. I mean, you were not born with goals. All our goals that we write down are voices in our head. I should do this. I will do that. I will meet that person. I will write that book. I will go to that country. I will invest this money. But that all those goals came from voices in our head. And for leaders, if you're not careful, you end up becoming an echo rather than a voice. You become a photocopy rather than the original. And so you have to be really careful about what you engage with. So if this person is, let me talk to pastors. If they think they hear about this series that this large church pastor has done, so they want to do similar, they'll change a few things around, but they will do similar series here, or a program for youth, or a marketing program for a corporation, or an onboarding program. Nothing wrong with any of that. But the most important question gets missed in the whole thing. And the most important question is, Joey, you are special. There's only one of you. What is it that you feel fulfillment, brings you joy, brings you significance, brings you success, and engage with that? And once you start engaging with your core, Sam Chand with his core, Joey Sutton with his core, and everybody listening to us with your core. And it goes back to a conversation we had before we went live, is the question is not what do I need to do, but what is bringing me the greatest fulfillment? What's bringing me the greatest significance? Because when I stand before the Lord, Joey, he would not ask me, why weren't you Joey or Ken Blanchard or John Maxwell or whoever comes to your mind? It'll be, why weren't you Sam Chand? And if we're not careful, we let other voices set our benchmarks, set our criteria, set our report card. Yeah, that's a good word. Set our report card for our life. So once I realized what brings me greater, okay, let me tell you what brings me, you didn't ask that question, but as an illustration, the greatest fulfillment that I have in my life right now, apart from family and God, the greatest fulfillment I have in my life right now is sitting down one-on-one with a leader of an organization. One-on-one. That's the greatest organization. The least fulfilling is talking to 10,000 people.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny to hear you say that.
And the second level of fulfillment that I have is sitting down with 10 to 15, no more than 20, but 10 to 15 high potential leaders in a room for half a day, maybe like 10 to 3. And I do that frequently. Some people call it roundtables. I just call it IDX, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter to me. I can facilitate that. I can speak into that. I can teach there. So my highest level right now. Now, I must tell you, it wasn't very long ago that speaking to 10,000 people, which I've done many times, would be highly fulfilling. I mean, I'd have pictures of me on X and in those days, Twitter and Facebook. I'm talking to these thousands of people. Camera angles are just right. And I have snippets on there, and brought me greater fulfillment and braggadocious nature. And nothing wrong with that. I'm not throwing it on the bus. I mean, for an immigrant to talk to people around the world like that, I mean, how crazy is that? But all that has flipped now. What brings you greatest fulfillment now is one-on-one, number one, 15-on-1, number two, and then it goes lower after that. And I'm just saying, you have to know that at different ages and stages of your life. So I'm not interested in selling 1 million books. I mean, if it happens, that'll be wonderful. But I am interested in that book falling in the hands of that one person for whom it could be a life changer. And that's my fulfillment.
Yeah, that's just to think on what you said, to recap it. I'm one of those. I was highly influenced the first time I read Leadership Pain, and really generated a message of really connecting with you. But also, it allowed me to see some things in my soul that really your voice needed to influence. And it was an impactful moment that was more than just reading a book. I always say inspiration's caught, it's not just taught. So even having the conversation, I'm catching certain things about your message in a way that I've seen more value to having the one-on-one conversations with people that really value that time. And leaving a stage, sometimes you can feel a little empty, even if you just completely influence the crowd and you delivered a message and everyone loves it and shares it, and you just can walk out feeling so empty. Like, so what? I mean, I write about we die twice. The first time is when we're at the funeral, your best friend's asking, "What's for lunch at 12 o'clock?" That's literally your best friend's going to ask that question. Life moves on. The second burial is where your name is forgotten. And let's just be honest, it's not about our name and even our legacy. It's the inspiration that we both believe comes from God.
You
One of the
know, even as we are talking, I'm reflecting on my last few days in Honduras. I spoke to, thousands of people, but my most fulfilling moment was over lunch with the pastor,
uh,
one on one, just lunch with him. That was the most fulfilling. I think my presence there was for that lunch. And he said that to me. We were walking back to the car. He said, thank you for coming and speaking to our people. But I believe God sent you here for that lunch. The needle moved measurably at lunch, one on one.
so powerful. I'm going to run with that one. That's enjoyable and meaningful and really life changing.
Have you ever had breakfast with somebody or lunch with somebody and you didn't sell anything, you didn't sell you anything, you didn't really talk transactional, and you left from there saying, man, that was so good. I want to do that again.
Yes.
That's fulfillment.
Yeah, Sam, it made me think of a moment I had with a mentor. I won't drop names anymore, but just because I don't want to sound like oh, look, Joey knows people. It changed my life. A breakfast with just one man, one moment. And that's hopefully what people can catch through this conversation. For the minutes we have remaining, I wanted to ask you, in the book, you talked about pickleball has taken off. And I know people today, by the way, great catch, great way to catch people's attention. I enjoy playing tennis now with my fourth daughter, Reese. I have six in all. And Reese, we really couldn't find a sport for her. And it wasn't until we started playing tennis that we caught a vision, and now she's taken off and the whole family's playing. So it's really been a big win for us because we're bonding and connecting. But pickleball's taken off. And you talked about leadership today in organizations. People are a lot like free agents. We don't have this one job, one career type of culture now. Everything is fast, fast, fast movement and going to the best possible opportunity. But today, leaders like pickleball, it's similar framework as tennis, but different technique and different swings. And would you tell us a little bit about how the competing really leadership framework today, the tools that we need to be really influential, is similar, but what's the difference in how you use that illustration and how we could apply in our own lives today?
So, a friend of mine invited me to play pickleball. He said, have at church. He said, Sam, have you ever played pickleball? I said, no, I haven't, but I'd love to. So he said, come on. And so went out to his place where he played pickleball. Now, in my previous life, when I was much younger, I was really good at ping pong, table tennis. In fact, I could hustle. That means make money. playing ping pong. Yeah, I was good. And I had dabbled in tennis, not really good, dabbled in tennis, played squash a few times. Uh, and all of them are racket, ball, a net, not squash, but the others, net. Uh, and the court looks similar. Rules are sort of similar. Scoring is sort of similar. So I went with my friend Lee to this pickleball place, and I had the paddle in my hand. It felt similar but different. I had the ball in my hand, similar but different. I was on a court that was similar but different. I looked at a net that was similar but different. I looked at the distance, similar but different. And I said to myself, a voice said in my mind said, "Hey, you can do this. You've done this before." Obviously, that wasn't helpful. So I'm trying to spin the ball, slice it like I am used to. I'm putting topspin on it, and it's not happening. And the rules similar but different. And I left that court saying to myself, I think that's how life has become, similar but different. So all the leaders who are listening to us, uh, you're not getting the same results that you used to get when you used to play the other game. It looks very similar, but it is different. Church looks similar, but it's different. Business looks similar, but it's different. Marketing looks similar, but it's different. Product development, R&D looks similar, but it is different. Regulations look similar, but they're different. And as long as you keep pushing into the similarity and not appreciate the difference, you're going to be looking for results based on previous metrics, not on new metrics. And the new metrics have changed. For example, in church, Joey, our metrics used to be what we call ABC: attendance, building, cash. A, attendance; B, building; C, cash. All that has changed now to impact and involvement. Impact is external, involvement is internal. How you measure those two things. So your metrics have changed. And I'd like for everyone listening to us say to themselves, what is similar that I can learn from, but how can I lean into the different and not try to fix the different, but lean into the different? And once you do that, you can start seeing the kind of results that you want, because now the results are based on metrics. Now you're not looking at old metrics, but you're looking at current and future metrics. You change your metrics, you change your results.
Wow. So looking at your dashboard, not being willing to change your dashboards and your metrics and how you measure really the impact, the people that currently are wanting the differences. So you have to not rely on past metrics and be willing to adapt, not adopt everything, and be with the time in a way that connects what's really going on today.
And you got to change your dashboard.
And change your dashboard. Well said. One final quote from your book, Voices: as leaders are being pulled in every imaginable direction, learning to filter out the destructive voices, harness the constructive ones, and use the painful ones for purpose has never been more critical than right now. I would say that is a fantastic final quote out of the book. Sam, thank you so much for the conversation. I'm really honored to connect with you, to also be able to share insights with people on social media. And also want to bring attention to samchan.com. Pay whatever you want for the book Voices. Just a very
That's
easy.
Samchan Book, samchanbook.com.
samchanbook.com. And I'll share the link in the message of this post. So,
and if someone like you wants to get the Avail journal, it's about 120 pages, glossy, 5-color. They can get it at availjournal.com. Avail 6 months free subscription, and after that, it's your decision to continue or not. So you'll get it's a quarterly magazine, so that means you'll get 2 of them free. And I can assure you this much: you may not like the content, which you will, but if you don't like the content, you will not throw this magazine away. It is that substantial and that beautiful. It's a coffee table piece. So that's availjournal.com, and you get for 6 months free.
So powerful. And John Maxwell, I would love, gosh, he's on the cover of the last one. I got to see it. Could you show it to us?
Yeah, he's my longtime friend. I used to be on his board. I've traveled the world with him, speaking on platforms with him. So yeah, he's a great friend and what a great leader, great author, great mentor, great coach. Just in my life, he's just a great brother and a friend. So I appreciate him so very much.
Outstanding. Sam, congratulations on the inspiration and the influence. And honestly, if you're watching, please share our conversation with whoever you feel may enjoy the living room conversation with Sam Chan. And thanks so much for the opportunity to talk, Sam.
It's been my honor and delight.